Hey guys, welcome back to part 2 of this introduction to Methware video. We're going to pick up where we left off, part 1, talking about what you'll find on the patient information screen. Okay, when we left off on the last video, we just got finished talking about the drug types that we have and the field that shows the methadone dose. The next fields that we're going to look at are these three that say user 8, 9, and 10. We use those as medical alerts, a place to show what the patient allergies are, and then a place for a reminder for the nurse about dose changes. The next field says hold, is one that we don't really use. The last visit is the last time that the patient was in the clinic and received a dose of methadone and then possibly take-home doses. The next visit field is the date on which the patient is due to return to the clinic to receive more medication. Okay, the last urine field is the date on which the patient last left a sample for a drug screen, usually a urine drug screen. We do have the ability to collect an oral fluid sample, but there are some limitations with the oral sample as opposed to the urine drug screen, so the majority of the time we'll do a urine sample for drug screening. Last TB is just the date that the patient last received a TB test, and the nurse inserts that information. The counselor is the primary counselor assigned to each patient. Even though each counselor does have their caseload of patients assigned to them, other counselors will usually assist with helping a patient if the primary counselor is busy. So we do a lot of overlap, helping each other with caseloads. The last treatment plan just indicates the date that they have the last treatment plan completed. There is a color coding system for some of these fields that will let you know when something is coming due or is past due. Treatment plan is one of the fields that does that. It should turn yellow when the expiration of the treatment plan is approaching, and it will turn red once the treatment plan is over a year old. The next few fields here have to do with the financial transactions and the patient fee account. I'll go into those in more depth when I do a video on managing the financial transactions for a patient. But just for right now, the things you need to know are the field that shows you the balance, either how much money the patient has on your account or how much money they might owe. That will be color coded as well if they owe money. The negative amount means that that is extra money that they have in the account that has not been deducted yet. The credit limit is a function that we use when a patient is due to make a payment, but they don't have the money for whatever reason to make a payment that day. We can adjust their credit limit so that the patient will be able to get medicated. The next few fields here, user 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is where we store information about the date of the last physical exam, the last urinalysis, which is different from the urine drug screen. There's a field here that will indicate whether or not the patient is on probation. These user fields can all be configured in whatever way we want in the clinic, so you may see a difference in the information from one clinic to another. There's a field here obviously for language. The WS PIN I will come back to. And then the last field is a drop-down list that again we can configure with what information we want to capture. In this case, gender, eye color, race, and there's a function here for temporary credit. Let me go back up to this field right here that says WS PIN. WS stands for Welcome Station. We use a kiosk type of machine in the clinic for patients to use to check in, find notifications that they need to receive for that day, and to make their payments. Okay, here I have a picture of basically what the welcome station looks like. It's just a kiosk with a screen in it, and when the patient arrives in the clinic, they check into the machine using their patient ID and their PIN number. So when the patients come into treatment and we're entering their information on the screen, we assign a PIN number to them that is going to be the last 4 digits of their social security number. That's why I like to have the dashes inserted here, so it's easy just to look at their social security number and know what their PIN number is going to be here. Now that we've covered the patient information screen, I want to point out the other tabs that we have across the top of this patient information window. You should note that the tabs here differ from the tabs up above. These tabs at the top just have to do with things that would apply to making changes to the system or running reports, things that are not specific to one particular patient. But again, in the patient record, these are sort of like tabs in a file folder. If you take a look at the assessment tab, there's not much going on there because really we don't use it. We use a form for everything that we would capture there. Prescriptions is a tab that we use. This is what the nurse would use to create the prescription for the patient. Most users, or at least counselor users, will have access to view this, but it'll be a read-only screen, so you won't be able to adjust any of this information, but you will be able to see the details about the patient prescription for methadone. We do have another storage place for prescriptions that patients get from outside of the clinic. This can be found down in the med count, and we'll get to that one later. Notes is an important tab that you'll be using frequently. We have different types of notes in here. This list may look a little bit different from what you'll see on the live system. There's a place for counseling notes, medical notes, financial notes. Should be another note type here, nursing notes. But the thing that most users, counseling users, will be using are these counseling notes right here. And I'll show you how those work. As you can see, this field contains older notes that have already been created, and you can adjust here how far back you want to be able to look to access those notes. And if you want to create a new note, first thing you have to be sure that you are in the correct type of note that you want, so make that selection here. Go down to New Notes, and you can enter your information. Be aware that the counseling notes are part of the patient's permanent record, and they do get reviewed by our accrediting agency and state auditors, so you want to make sure that your grammar and punctuation is correct. Best thing to do is to go back in the computer system and look at some patients and sort of read notes that are already there so you can get a feel for what the notes should look like. There is a note format that we use, and your supervisor will go over the format and let you know what he or she wants your notes to look like. The other type of note that usually the counseling staff will be using might be financial notes. If you go back over to the patient information screen, you remember that we went over the financial transactions, and there's a field here called credit limit. So that's a field that you would use when, say, for example, the patient comes in one day and they don't have the money to make their payment, and they discuss that with you and you agree that they can postpone making their payment. You need to enter an amount in this field that will be at least as high as the amount that's in the balance field, and that will enable them to be medicated. But we'll spend more time going over the financial transactions. I just wanted to introduce those to you right now. So when you do a credit limit change, for example, you'd want to make a note of that so that anybody else that is dealing with the patient another time might be able to go back and reference, and if they can see that your agreement with the patient was maybe that they would pay 2 days from now, or it alerts other users if, for example, they're having car trouble or their rent payment is due, or whatever reason they have for not being able to make the payment that day. It's just important to make a record so that other users will know what's going on if they need to go back and make an adjustment for the patient. Okay, the next tab is treatment plan. That, along with the assessment, are two tabs that we just don't use because we've got other forms that take care of those functions that work better for us. This last tab, testing, is urine drug screen testing results. We'll be using this frequently. When you open up this tab, it should show you a list of the results of all the drug screens that have been collected for the patient. The top will tell you all the drugs that we test for. This is not a complete list. And when results are entered, they're color-coded to indicate whether or not there's an unexpected result, which is going to be color-coded red, or if there's, for example, a positive, but maybe that positive is excused because they have a prescription, in which case it will turn green. So that'll indicate that the result came back positive, but the patient had brought in a valid prescription for that drug and that was approved by the doctor, and so we can change that to a positive. Again, this is an item that we're going to come back to and go into in more depth later on, but just note for now that there are tabs at the bottom to enter new test results. Once test results are entered, if you highlight a particular result or click on a particular result, you're able to change the status, meaning you can change it from, say, a positive to an excused positive. I am going to go ahead and pause the video here. Please continue on to the third video. See you then.